Chevra, good evening, everybody. Still light out. Well, it's snowing in April, kind of raining also, which is beautiful. Today is the yartzeit of Moreno Rabbeinu Rav Avigdor Miller, Zechusi Agenleinu. And he used to say, when it's raining, a mother should tell the children how fun it is that it's raining, how wonderful it is. It's people coming down from the sky, because most of the human body is made out of water. And so therefore, it's people coming down from the sky. So the same thing, how much Rabbi Miller looked into and cared about finding joy in life. People used to say that even though Rabbi Miller, he did learn Hasidic Sfarim, he probably learned Sifrei Kabbalah also, but the Hasidim say that he achieved the goals of Hasidus without Hasidus, and the Mekubalim say he achieved the goals of Kabbalah without Kabbalah. Because really, essentially, I mean, his whole life was the Chavos Levavos and the Mesilas Yesharim and the Shas. And from the Chavos Levavos, the Samarav always said the Chavos Levavos is 99% of what the Derech HaBaal Shem Tov is all about. And I remember meeting Rabbi Miller twice, going to his shiur Thursday night. And I was thinking about a story that I had heard from somebody from the Bala Uvda. I was a hostbucher, a gaba for Chassidish Rebbe from Yerushalayim, and we were in Manhattan, and we were visiting some Syrian Jews there, and we know Rabbi Miller, he loved the Hasidim, he loved the Sephardim, he loved every frum Jew, Rabbi Miller. And he so the story, I asked this Rebbe who I was with, I said, he didn't grow up in a Rebbe's home, he was a Rebbe's Einikol, but he married into the Rebbe Vista. But I asked him, I said, did you ever see Rav Avigdor Miller? I asked him after the story, he said, no, he wasn't. So, Baruch Hashem, I was Zoicha twice, maybe three times, I don't remember. I know at least twice. One of the tapes, actually, I'm on the tape. You could hear me asking him the question. The tape is called Diamonds in the Road. And the questions in the end, you can hear me. But Rabbi Miller, he was the mashgiach in Chaim Berlin and in the Mir, and he was the Rav in Young Israel Rugby, and then he had his own Besmedrash and his own yeshiva. And his son, unfortunately, is very sick right now. Shmuel ben Avigdor Cohen, Shmuel ben Etel Chaya. Shmuel Kohen ben Etel Chaya or Etel Chana, I don't remember. Shav for Shleima. Unfortunately, we just lost Rav Miller's daughter-in-law in this Magefa. And I remember when Rabbi Miller was nifter. I wrote an essay. It's on my website. 19 years ago. But this story that I heard that impressed me very much. Maybe first I'll tell my own story that impressed me even more. What did I ask Rabbi Miller? I spoke about this before. And he was talking about the mitzvah of loving a fellow Jew. And he said, you see another frum Jew, you have to say, I love you. I love that Jew. And then I asked him about certain things. He said, there's a mitzvah only to love a frum Jew, but he said he noticed the way I was asking, he was sensitive to something, so he told me something. It's on the tape. He said that he said there was a story in the Chovos Levavos where two Hasidim were walking. What I've heard is when the Chovos Levavos says Hasidim, it means Hasidim Masoilim, it means Sufi mystics, Muslims. But one said to his friend, they saw the carcass of a donkey, and one said to the friend, he said, look how ekeldik, how disgusting this rotting carcass is. And the other one said, yeah, but look how wide its teeth are. So then Rabbi Miller said, this world is a beautiful place. We have to, like the song says, accentuate the positive. Right? Like Rabbi Nachman teaches about, being done, everyone kafschus. You have to look for the good things in the world and appreciate them. It's going to make, and he said to me, it's going to make you a happier person, because this is such a beautiful world that Hashem created. Because he noticed I was an angry young man, and he saved me from that by teaching me that lesson. And I don't think I'll ever forget that. I hope not. So then, the Maisa that we heard, I think it was in Empire State Building, we were with this Rebbe. It was a Balabas, was telling us the story. He said, he, as a youth, learned in Magen David, which is a Syrian yeshiva, day school. And he was a little older. His parents sent him to, I think, to Mir. I don't know if it was the Mir or Chaim Berlin. I think it was Mir to learn. Mir is right there in the Syrian neighborhood. In Mir, Brooklyn, I mean. So that's where he was, I guess, in middle school, high school, junior high, whatever. So this Yid, he said, it was such a culture shock going from Magen David, a co-ed school, a day school, to Mir. Like, remember, he saw one of the girls who he went to school with, and when the Rosh Yeshiva saw him talking to a girl, he said, he said, so he came crying. He said, I don't know what he's talking about today. He can't go out with Knedlach. So then he said, this guy, he said, in Magen David, they taught the kids to learn Chumash and Rashi Baal Peh. I think Chumash, Rashi and Unklis, all by heart. So he was goofing off in the Chumash class. They said, I think they said 4 days a week they had a Chumash class, and 1 day a week they would have a Musar Shmuz from Rabbi Miller. And each grade, every day of the week, would have, a different day of the week would have Rabbi Miller. So, maybe like 6th grade would be Monday, and 7th grade would be Tuesday, and 8th grade would be Wednesday, Chedayma. So what happened was that this boy, he learned in Magen David, the way they learned Chumash was probably better, to be honest, than how they were learning in the yeshivish place. They was the old traditional Sephardic Syrian tradition that the little kids from the youngest age they memorized the Chumash. Kind of like Lahavdil, how the Muslims, the little kids, they memorize the Quran, Lahavdil. So it's a similar type of thing. It's a culture of the Middle Eastern culture. And I'm not saying, and Mistama, the Muslims probably got it from the Jews. Most likely that's the old way how things were by Klal Yisrael. As little kids, they knew Chumash, Baal Peh, from the youngest ages. So this kid, he knew Chumash, Rashi, Unklis, Baal Peh. And so he would goof off in class, in the Chumash class, because it was boring to him, because he already knew it all. And the more the Bnei Yeshiva, the more Haredish kids, they were behind. So then he said, So then, like he was reading a comic book or something. I don't know. So then the Rebbe yelled at him, and then he said, "Are you paying attention?" He said, "Of course." And he just Balpeh, just he was just saying over from memory the whole parsha Rashi, Chumash Rashi Unklis, because he knew it. So then the Rebbe got very uh, he was embarrassed, and he said he said, "You're mechutzef, you're insolent," and he said, "You're out of here." He said, "This is your punishment. You can't come to this Chumash class anymore. Every day you have to go to Rabbi Miller's Musar Shmuz. That's going to be your punishment. You're kicked out of the Chumash year. You're going to go." So then this guy said, "That's not a punishment. That's the greatest reward you could get, to go to Rabbi Miller every day to hear Musar Shmuz from Rabbi Miller." So he goes there, and Rabbi Miller every day said the same shir, pretty much the same shir every day, 5 days a week, to the different shirim, that we're hearing Musar Shmuz. Every week he repeated the same one 4 times, 5 times, whatever. So then after 3-4 days, Rabbi Miller notices the same boys in class. Said, "Bocher, come over here. You were here yesterday." He said, "Yeah, I was here the day before too." So he told him what happened. He said, "All right, I'll talk to your Rebbe, and you'll go back to the Chumash year." He said, No, I want to stay here. I enjoy this better." So then Rabbi Miller said, "Okay." So then the guy said, "This is what means a gadol. This is what shows the greatness of Rabbi Miller." He said, "For me, this little shmendrik kid in his class, he didn't say the same shir every day. It was basically the same, but he used different examples, different stories to give over the same message. It was the same message, all four, but he didn't give exactly the same shir, because he knew there was one boy in the class who had heard it already, didn't want him to be bored. And so to show that sensitivity to this kid who's a troublemaker, and he showed the Ahavas Yisrael and so this guy, he appreciated all his life. He said, that's a real gadol. He said, that's a real gadol. That's a real, So no, that's the Maisa. We have many more stories from Rabbi Miller. One of our Rebbeim, who we all know online, Rabbi Bar Tzadok, Sign, who's making wonderful shiurim right now on YouTube. Every day he's giving a shiur now on Sefer Yetzirah. It's Kedai to listen to him. And he tells the story. He said he'd always been a fan of Rabbi Miller, even though he has a very different hashkafa from Rabbi Miller, but he still appreciated who Rabbi Miller was. And he said one time he happened to be in Brooklyn, and he said, I heard. He said, I'd like to, while I'm here in Brooklyn, I'd like to go see Rav Avigdor Miller. And someone said, "Well, you're in luck. You can set your watch to it. He walks every day down Ocean Parkway, and he'll be here in about 3 minutes. And you can walk with him and talk to him." And so he continued walking with him, and he asked him whatever he had to talk about, and that's how people would see him, because they knew he went for a walk every day, and that was his Kabbalah's Kahol. That was when he, you could go talk to him, get an eitzah, get a bracha, whatever. And Rabbi Bar Tzadok said that Rabbi Miller, after, he asked Rabbi Miller for eitzah, for advice, for a bracha, for a blessing. Then Rabbi Miller asked him for a bracha. Someone, less than half his age, So that's it was the humility also of Rabbi Miller. Incredible person. He knew all Shas. He knew. He was, some people, many stories were like, they would ask him something in Indian here and there, and he would think for 2-3 minutes. He said, he was mamish reviewing the whole Shas in those 3 minutes, and he was be like the whole Talmud, the whole encyclopedia, you know. And he said, no, that doesn't appear anywhere in Shas, that was Rav Avigdor Miller. That was you know, godless in all different levels, in humility, in emunah, in lumdus, in bekias, and all kinds of things. Incredible thing. I remember, they said he was a shtik emunah. That's what people were talking about. He was just a living piece of faith, an example of faith in the world. And I know it changed my life to read his books and then actually to meet him. I would say I would have been modern Orthodox if it wasn't for Rav Avigdor Miller. It was Rav Avigdor Miller who made me a Haredi from his farm. That's why that's what gave me the Haredish hashkafa, was Rav Avigdor Miller's farm. I know they're not politically correct. I know people are picking on him. It's a stupid thing to pick on him. And yeah, he said certain things. I understand, not politically correct. But you have to understand, he's a man of his time. The same thing. Are you going to pick on Rav Kook because he was against women's suffrage? I never hear a religious Zionist, neither apologize for it, nor say that they write him off because, that's the same thing, like how people say, Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, you think if he was alive today he'd own slaves? No, as opposed to FDR was sitting with the king of Saudi Arabia, who had slaves in the 1940s, and he thought it was cute. He wasn't even offended by it. He was like, oh, this is a riot. That was FDR. And then and then it's the same thing. I don't think Rav Kook would be against women's suffrage right now either. And the same thing. If Rav Avigdor Miller was born in the 1970s, 1980s, I don't think he would have had some of the same views. But a lot of the things he said are taken out of context, because if you compare, he's people claim that he's racist, this and that, and yes, certain things he said are certainly racially insensitive, but he was not a racist. He embraced converts, he embraced Gerim. If anybody, where he would send the Gerim to, and the converts in his community to Reb Steinberg Shlita, who's Megayer my Rebbetzin. So, it's a gewaltige Zach. The Born Shalom should have Rachmanis on us. We should all be Zeicha to be people who have emunah. Rav Miller taught 10 steps to greatness. He wanted us all to be gadolim. He wanted us all to have, to recognize our potential, and it's a tremendous thing, and it gives me hope, If I used to be a young Israel rabbi, just like he was, you could make something of yourself in this world. And it's not just me. I'm no different than you. You could also make something of yourself in this world. You could be a great person. Whoever it is who's listening to this, you have so much potential. You're made in the image of God. God breathed the soul into you. That if in the Sifrei Kabbalah says that wherever someone breathes from, the Zohar says it, they breathe from their inside, from their very essence. You realize what that means? Think about it, And you don't need to interpret that materialistically. You can interpret that practically, meaning, the materialistic way of interpreting it could be heretical, but the practical way of interpreting it is very strong. That you have a godly power inside of you, and you have to make the most of it. And the way of doing it is by appreciating what a beautiful world God made. Like Rabbi Miller said, you pick up an apple, like my friend David Jassy. He had the video of the apples on his YouTube channel. You check it out, Rabbi Miller with the apples. You pick up. I hope he considers me a friend. I don't know if he does or not, but old acquaintances at least. You pick up an apple. It's a love letter from God. Think of what it means: the seeds of the apple, or a watermelon, or whatever it is that's there in the world that God made. The brilliance of it. You know, how it should transfigurate our look at the world. The way my friend Rabbi Zakai said. He said, going shopping in the supermarket and picking up a piece of fruit or vegetable could be a spiritual experience like making a pilgrimage to a holy place. You know, we have to embrace that. So, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. And the schus of the great tzaddik, Rabbi Avigdor ben Shmuel Kohen Miller, should be a schus for us, for the whole Klal Yisrael. We should all be zeiche to see all kinds of Yeshuas and Nechamas. We should get out of this Magefa, and maybe even see the Bias Gold Tzedek Meir Remeinu Amen. His Rambam Karen Atarav Yisrael Misgalos Kvayt Shemaim Meir Remeinu Amen.